For this forum, it will be moderated by Professor Dr. Kulantayan Mani, where the topic of discussion is bridging the gaps in mobility. Professor Dr. Kulantayan Mani is from the Department of Community Health, Faculty of Medicine and Health Sciences, University Putra Malaysia UPM in Serdang, Selangor. He is the expert on children's safety and is the chair of the board of directors of Global Alliance of NGOs for Road Safety for a 2-year term from 2022 until 2024. The first panelist we have Professor Akimasa Fujiwara from Hiroshima University, Japan. The second panelist, Professor Jong Won-yu, Ajo University of South Korea. The third panelist, Dr. Azlan Darus, Social Security Organization from Malaysia. And last but not least, the fourth one, Dr. Ingrid Johnson, CEO of Australasian College of Road Safety from Australia. Esteemed guests, from the issues and limitations of mobility that you can retrieve from the back of your mind, what can we do to rectify and/or mitigate them? Let us find out from today's forum. Now, I will hand the honor of this platform to Professor Dr. Kulantayan as the moderator. Please, welcome.
Right, thanks to the chair, to the MC. A very good morning to everyone. We welcome everyone to the second forum on the second day, titled Bridging the Gaps in Mobility. And we are very privileged to have four panelists over here from different countries, from Japan, Korea, Australia, and we have our own local one from Malaysia. So do welcome. For a start, what we'll do is I'm going to invite one of our panelists, Professor Akimasa Fujiwara, from the University of Hiroshima, Japan. He has a presentation to be made. So once he has done with that, and then we will start the panel session. With all due respect, please.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Fujiwara from Hiroshima University. At the beginning of this forum, I'm going to make a short presentation how to identify our topic today. Can you show my slide? I need to work this. Okay, thank you very much. Title is Bridging the Gap in Mobility. Then I think there are a lot of specialists in the field of this research topic, but I'm going to make a short presentation to promote the gap in mobility. Mainly, I'm going to talk about the data-driven approach toward the gap in mobilities. Then a moderator raised the several questions in advance. Then I want to respond first of all his question. There are two questions regarding on the data-driven approach. The first one is data analysis and insights to identify the high-risk area and behavior. Yeah, we have a lot of advanced technology to identify the pedestrian or bicyclist behavior, then to prevent the traffic accident or risks. Then my answer is yes. There are a lot of approach to realize this safety society. In the viewpoint of the predictive analytics, fortunately, we have technologies such as AI and machine learning to analyze the historical traffic data and statistics, and also predict the potential conflict between the different road users. Also, we can easily develop the community engagement platform such as road user report safety concern and share real-time information about the road condition by actively. And also, we have a simulator or mapping technology. We call the 3D mapping and simulation can be utilized for training purpose and to identify the potential safety hazard. Second question was the role of technology to collect the real-time data. Then there are three types of real-time data collection. Regards the vehicle, we have advanced technologies such as the connected autonomous vehicle or pedestrian and cyclist detection system. Those are easily identified the movement of the movement of the pedestrian and cyclists, and also to identify the predict their behavior in future. And also, we have a communication tool between the vehicle to the infrastructure, V2X communication. Related to the human beings, we have a new appli, such as a dedicated safety application or AR head-up display for drivers to identify, to prevent risks. And also community engagement platform I already mentioned. Last one, infrastructure. Smart crossway and intersection are very much useful to improve the environment for pedestrian and cyclists. That is a direct link to the fulfill the gap in mobility. And also geofence or speed limit technology are very much useful to prevent the accident. Then finally, I want to propose the new concept that is a mobility-oriented development. This concept, not originally developed by myself, this is a proposal 2017 by Smolnich. This is a book chapter paper in Happy City. So if you have interest, please visit this website. Then I want to explain, define what is a MOD. Then this concept is the alternative one of the transit-oriented development. This is historically developed in 20th century. Then MOD, New Mobility-Oriented Development, aims to develop a platform as a system of systems realize the vibrant city. The urban development and mobility services are linked directly by implementing various transportation systems such as automated BRT, last mile ride-share service, or MaaS. By implementing the infrastructure system, then finally, I want to show the data-driven approach toward the MOD. First of all, we need to design this concept that is a mobility-oriented development. And then we will have two cyberspace experiment and physical space experiment. This is a citywide simulator and V2X technology. Those are collaboratively experiment to identify the movement of pedestrian and cyclists, or the disabled people, or aged people, or kids, some others. Then finally, we need to develop the digital twin sandbox to connect both simulator, cyberspace experiment and physical space experiment. Those new technology will support us to identify the risks and the hazard for these mobility users. That is my short presentation. Thank you very much.
Right, thanks, Prof. Fujiwara from Hiroshima University. It was good that he did introduce some new concepts over there as well on the mobility-oriented development, MOD, Ken. And I think he also did share on the Happy City. So that's something, a new document for you to have a look as well. Well, while you're talking on Happy City, I'm not sure, just Prof, maybe I can just ask you this question. There is a large movement where they call it as a safe community movement, which is very strong in Japan as well. We have in Japan, we have in Korea and Australia as well. So how do you see Happy City and together with the safe community movement, if you're familiar with that? Okay, do you want to respond to the question? Yeah, the question first. Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much. As I mentioned, the safety can be improved by using the new technology, I believe. Especially, we want to enforce our community level communication to improve the safety level among the citizenship, especially in the local communities. So, as I mentioned, for example, the Decade Safety Appli or community engagement platform will support us to improve the safety level in the residential area, for example.
Right, thanks. Just for everyone's sharing as well. Safe community movement is something that we can explore. The beauty behind this movement is it's from the community to the community, compared to the other types of interventions where it comes in, sometimes comes from top down. Okay? But this one is exactly who is the recipient. They are initiating what they feel they need for their safety. So it tends to be sustainable because it comes from the people whom are the consumer itself. So this is something that to be looked at in order to sustain any intervention programs which we feel can give us return. So that's one. Since coming back to the topic today on bridging the gaps in mobility, I may start with the Sustainable Development Goal, which is tying all of us in here. Of course, before the SDGs came in, we had the Millennium Development Goals, MDGs. But now we have those goals. But if we don't make full use of those goals, then we won't be able to see the results or the benefits behind those goals. After so many efforts, finally in this particular SDGs, we were able to put in 2 goals related directly on road safety, which is SDG 3.6 and SDG 11.2. It was a big exercise to get these 2 goals in. So after we have achieved that, but then if we don't make full use of it, then we won't be able to see the benefit. That's one. That's one comment on that part. The second one is, if we don't restrict only to these 2 goals, but there are also other goals, if you see, which we can benefit as well to drive not only road safety, but also other fields. One particular goal, if you see, is SDG 1, which is to end poverty. If we can end poverty, we will be able to see benefits across many fields. Vice versa, by improving other areas, or by improving your mobility, by improving your transport as well, it might also result in a potential ending poverty as well. So just keep that in mind. Having said that, let me cross on the questions on the Sustainable Development Goals. If I may start with our friend next to me from Korea, Prof. Yu, Ken?
Yeah.
Prof. Jeong Won Yu. So the question that I have for you is, how do you think the UN's Sustainable Development Goal for road safety be effectively integrated into national policies and local action plans? And after I pose to you this question, I'm going to come back to my friend here locally, Dr. Azlan, to also respond to that question. because looking at SDGs, both at global level as well as at national level. Please.
Well, I think I have to pass this question to the other person because I'm more focused on the e-mobility and the micro-mobility. So
okay.
I think I'm not a appropriate person to answer that question.
All right.
Okay?
Ken. Are you okay? Comfortable with that? Okay, good, Ken.
Thank you. I think one of the really important things to start with is to make sure that the SDGs are actually reflected in national road safety strategies. So in Australia, for example, we have a national road safety strategy at the moment which only reflects the goal on fatalities. The serious injuries goal is not in Australia's national road safety strategy, which means immediately we are not focused on making sure that we're trying to reduce the serious injuries as well. So it's really important that it is in writing in national plans. And the other thing to think about, I think, is the fact that the road safety sustainable development goals are in two different areas. So you've got the one that's in health, and then you've got the one which is in sustainable cities and communities. And what that tells us is that it's not just one sector that has a role to play in this. Road safety is complicated, and if we were reducing trauma on our roads, then we would be benefiting all sorts of other sustainable development goals as well. And so it takes more than just the transport sector and the health sector. It needs all sorts of people involved in addressing the complexities.
Thank you. Right. I agree with Prof. Kulenson about the SDGs. There are measures that can be taken directly, especially if you want to sustain the SDG 3.6 and 11.2. And that is the most important, I think, in trying to match the road safety plan to directly match it to the SDGs. I also want to comment on the other SDGs that Prof. Mentioned. I think it's really nice to look at other SDGs where there's to have a greener technology or save the earth, or looking at SDGs on the reduction of poverty. But I think in this time, it is very important for us to directly focus on road safety. It is something that is tangible, that you can see the changes immediately if we put all effort into this. So we don't have to go around it and say, look, let's reduce poverty, therefore people use less motorcycle, therefore less motorcycle injury. We go straight away, we go directly and handle the situation. Let's make motorcycle riders safer, for example. I think that is one of the things that any road safety plan in the country should do, reflecting how we can achieve the SDGs. In Malaysia, unfortunately, Prof. Johnston, we also do not put the severe injury as part of the outcome that we wanted for the Malaysian road safety plan, but we still look at what the SDG has looked into until 2030. Therefore, the vision for Malaysian road safety plan 2022 to 2030 is to reduce fatality by 50%. So I think there is also a measure of trying to be realistic while thinking about the road safety plan. It's possibly, maybe, either it is right or wrong. We were thinking at the time that reducing the fatality is the most important, because in Malaysia we do experience almost 6,000 cases of fatality on road crashes every year. Therefore, it is very important to reduce the fatality, and hoping that actions that we take to reduce fatality will also then spread out to reduce the number of major injuries as well as accidents. But then saying that again, it is almost like saying it's okay to have a disease, but just don't die of that disease. The best should be not to have the disease, isn't it? So, but I suppose within the scope of the stakeholders, then there is something that can be measured, that can be achieved, or we think should be achieved by 2030. But saying that, I'm sure also with other countries, we try to match the visions and the outcomes of our own national road safety plans to the SDGs. And I think that is a very good way to make all other efforts in line as well.
Right. Thanks, Azlan. Yeah, if we can see what from both the panelists, from Dr. Ingrid and Dr. Azlan, the message is very clear. The global plan tells us 50% reduction on both fatalities and serious injuries. Please do not forget the serious injuries. I think that's the point here. But then let's go beyond than that. Keep in mind that we are trying to also reduce number of crashes, as what Azlan was also highlighting. And don't forget, the next one is the near misses. Also, these are the other indicators. But for a start, for something that which we could measure, let's go ahead with the fatalities first, and then of course serious injuries. But keep in mind the crashes as well as the near misses. So once we can make the whole pathway safe, then we believe that we might be able to see the drop in all these kind of indicators, right? Ken, when we are linking to SDG 1, the idea is like this. Any family who is involved in a crash, you might be able to lead them to make them even more poorer compared to what they are now. A poor family who's involved in a crash can be even poorer. That's why we want to address SDG 1 as well. That's one. Another initiative which was launched in UK it's called Child Health Initiative, where they combine transport and environment together. Because any child who is walking on a roadway is exposed to two risks as well. Okay? So if we can reduce the number of vehicles on the road, then we get returns on the two areas. In terms of environment, we are able to improve, as well as in terms of safety, we are able to improve. So keeping in mind that because sometimes our hands are a bit tight, we have less resources. So if we can combine with different fields, then we can synergize together, and we can have returns on both sectors. So that's another approach to be looked at. So coming back to my friend from Suwon, Korea, who insisted that his area or his expertise is more on the micro-mobility, so we'll have one question for him on that part. For those who don't know, who's not well, who need to know much about Professor Jeong Woon Yu, he's from Ajo University. Okay? He holds a civil engineering degree over from there. And he's a professor in transportation systems engineering. Right, and then, and that's something interesting over here. His dissertation received the 2002 Eric Pass Best Dissertation Award for International Association for Travel Behavior Research. Congrats, bro. Right. So your study is more on behavior, looks like, so it'll be quite interesting to know on that part. So let's touch on the micro-mobility. How do you think? How can micro-mobility options like e-scooters or bike sharing or even electric shuttles can complement existing transportation networks and provide convenient alternatives for short trips? Or sometimes we call it as the first mile and last mile. Right, please.
Thank you. We just talk about the safe society and sustainable society. I think the new mobility really have make our society more sustainable and safer. So in that sense, I'd like to talk about the shared e-scooters, the bike, something like that. Of course, recently we have a very bad news from Paris. Paris recently banned shared e-scooters. So I don't think it's a good decision. So already so many experts from all over the country actually so disappointed with the Paris decisions. In Korea, our case, we are in middle of a very hot discussions. Some people say that it's really important for our sustainable and trend-oriented society. And some people say that it's right now, it's a little bit dangerous because recently the accident related to the e-scooters is keep increasing. So, but still, I believe that the e-scooter, shared e-scooter and e-bike is the way to go, because in transportation, the use of public transport is really important to make our society more sustainable. But if you look at our history, in the past, there's always a really big battle between passenger car and public transport. In Korea, we spend so much big money on train and bus system, but still the share of passenger car is very high. For example, like in Korea, because of we are very the highly developed and the dense cities, so the construction cost for subway is very expensive. For example, like just 1 kilometer, we have to spend $150 million US dollars, just 1 kilometer. So even though it's very costly, but we still make a lot of new metro lines, but still people prefer the passenger cars. That's because of the issue of accessibility. If you want to use the metro or bus, you have to walk like the 400 meters or 500 meters. So it's a really big barrier. That's why, even though we put lots of money and our effort on public transport, still we continue to losing the battle against the passenger car. In that sense, recently the shared e-bike and e-scooter is really important to win against the passenger cars. So, for example, like in Korea, we have in last 4 or 5 years, there are a lot of startups to provide service, the shared e-bike and e-scooters. They are very popular among youngsters. But problem is that the little bit older people, like 40s, 50s, that they are really reluctant to use the e-bike because if it's unsafe. For me, I tried several times, but I still comfortable with the two-wheel, the e-scooters. So right now we are suggesting that maybe we have to come up with like a more safe and more convenient the e-scooter like a three-wheel or three-wheel scooters, three-wheel e-bike. Then you can encourage the older people to use those shared e-scooters. Then we can make the share of public transport use much more than now. So the first mile, last mile problem, the weakest point of the public transport use, we can overcome that weakness using our shared e-bike system. Yeah.
Can I?
Yeah, please. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. There is a place for e-mobility, and that first and last mile is a huge issue, and these devices have a real chance to overcome that. We just need to think about how they fit into the transportation mix. So if you are mixing pedestrians with e-scooters, then that's putting the pedestrians at risk. If you're mixing e-scooters with cars, that's putting the e-scooter riders at risk. So we need to think about the speed that they go at, the weight that they have, and where they should be in the mobility mix so that they can be used safely.
Actually, that's a really good point. So in Korea right now, the central government and local government try to construct the exclusive the e-scooter lane on road. But because, as you said, that right now, the pedestrian and the e-scooter are mixed together. So that's really dangerous. And it's really a serious safety issue. So we try to expand those exclusive lane, but it's very slow. That's the problem. So I think that's the right way to go. I agree with you.
Right, thanks. It was a good debate. So the key point we know, we need to close the first and last mile. If we can close or we can address the first and last mile, then we can increase the usage of public transport. Then eventually we can reduce the number of people using private vehicles. We have to reach to that point. If you look at Malaysia, for a population of 32 million that we have almost equivalent number of registered vehicles. So it's almost like 1-to-1 ratio. You can cross-check back at respective your own homes. Just look how many households you have, and then just look at how many registered vehicles you have. So that's the ratio we have, 1-to-1. So this is unhealthy. So we will keep on having problems in terms of road safety and in terms of traffic congestion as long as we have high number of private vehicles being used. So that's one. So coming back to this e-mobility, of course, it's much better off compared to the other options because the speeds are low, right? But the issue, as what Dr. Ingrid has brought up, is if they are on their own lane, that's fine, as long as they don't mix. But the moment they mix with other vehicles, which is different in size and different in speed, then you're going to put them at risk. So we have to balance that part. Okay? So just keep that in mind as well. We know the demand is high from consumers, from youth and everyone to use this e-mobility. Okay? But our concern is, as much as we want to provide a safe transport, safe travel from one point to another point, we have equal responsibility to make sure that we provide a safe travel from one point to another point. Right. The next one, I'm going to go back to our friend from Japan. Since he has touched on data-driven programs, right? So the question for you I have is, how do you think, how can data analytics and insights be used to identify high-risk areas and behaviors which can enable targeted interventions for road safety improvement? So using your data to identify, and then so that we can come up with intervention. Right.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We have a long history to collect the transportation accident database. Then we try to identify what the reason, causal factors to occur the fatality or some accident injured. But we face the limitation to reduce the number of accidents. That's why we need to improve one more step by using the new technology. Then we have black spots, a lot of black spots of the very much serious, dangerous place. Then we know that, but we cannot stop to increase the accident. So in this case, I want to propose the concept of MOD, mobility-based oriented approach. Then also we want to utilize the advanced technology I mentioned today. Then that will be beyond the existing barrier one more step to reduce the number of accidents, I believe. Otherwise, it's very difficult to reduce. That is one aspect. Another one is mutual collaboration among the road users are very much important. Our society moved to the robot-based society now, but we still remain the human-centric society to mutually support each other by the citizens. Then elder people should be supported by the younger people. Disabled people supported by the health people. Those are very much important. Then one of the platform will support them to mutually collaborate each other. That is my aspect. Thank you.
Dr. Fujiwara, I have a question. You are talking about the MOD, mobility-oriented development. We are quite familiar with TOD, transit-oriented development. What's the main difference between MOD and TOD? Is it the similar thing or different?
Basic concept is the same. The public transportation-oriented city development, this is a concept, a mutual common concept between TOD and MOD. One difference is TOD basically based on the traditional type of public transportation, but now it's very difficult to identify the definition of public transportation in the new mobility era. So ride sharing is a part of public transportation or private car. It's very difficult to say. Then I want to propose we need to expand the territory of public transportation to new mobility, then connecting the public transportation and first and last mile mobility, e-scooter. This is a new concept of mobility, new mobility, rather than public transport. That's why I want to propose the mobility-oriented development, city development. That is my idea. Thank you.
One more. So then, in the future, the autonomous vehicle is not private passenger car anymore. So we can say that the autonomous vehicle is as one type of public transit. You are saying like that?
It's very difficult to say, but I believe autonomous vehicle will be shared, not owned by person, I think, that to reduce the parking place or some other externality of that. Anyway, therefore, in near future, it's very difficult to distinguish between the private vehicle and the public vehicle. That's why new mobility concept is quite important.
Comment on that part? Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Your presentation earlier on the data-driven road safety measures, I think open up a few areas that we can think about. I would like to see, for example, in this era or this time in transportation where there's a lot of data-driven information used by the user, that the developer of this data or the developer of these technologies also do it responsibly. Let me ask everyone here, when you drive at home or you're coming here this morning, how many of you use the map application? Yeah, okay, can be the navigation app, right? I use one which is very popular in this country. I should not say the name. And it's fantastic. You can choose which the routes that avoid toll roads. You can choose the fastest route, but there is no choice for the safest route. You get warned if there is a traffic jam, but they will not show you this accident-prone area. If you exceed your speed limit, the speed marker on the bottom left of your navigation will turn red. Why not the whole application turn red? So that it'll tell you that you already exceed speed limit. So what I'm saying is, this is the time when there's a lot of this application, this data being used to assist people in transportation. But every single company that developed this need to do this responsibly as well. We are trying very hard to get, for example, black spot areas in Malaysia to be included in one of the navigation application. We've tried for 1 year. It's still not on yet. We are trying to see whether messages can come up in those applications for those gig riders if they are riding unsafely or too fast to come up. Still not happen. If you are using the app and then you suddenly realize you're not using the same, you're not going to that place, you want to change your route. So you start to type in your next destination. What does the app say? Don't type and drive. I say, why not the app just don't function so that you have to go to the site before it functions? It doesn't matter. If you have this small reminder in the app, don't type and drive, and the guy is still typing and driving, it is still dangerous. So, in this development of this data-driven transportation, mobility, safety, we have to do it responsibly as well. Do not beat around the bush. Just make it safer for people to use. I think that's, if we can get this message, I think that will be very important.
Sorry, just to link two of those things, technology and back to e-scooters. E-scooters slow you down if you come into a certain zone, you can't go over a certain speed. We could do that with cars. We could address speeding just by turning that on. Why don't we do that? We need to get industry on board.
Regarding the motor data, I'd like to talk about the current very hot issue in Korea. Traditionally, in the past, all transport-related data, the government collects, or at least the public agency collect, like the origin destination data and travel speed and crash data. So all those transport data, the public agencies and government collected. But right now, as you said, that there are so many traffic-related apps and then the private companies that they are very good at collecting data. Fortunately, like in Korea, there are mobile companies that they provide those navigation app and any kind of informations to drivers, and then they collect the driver data. So right now, their data is more accurate and much more than the government collect data. So now we have to, for example, like government, local government, central government, or public agencies have to buy data from private companies. So it's okay, you can just pay the cost because they deserve it. But problem is that how can we control the quality of the mobile data collected owned by the private companies? It's really difficult. So we cannot push. So that means the market already won against the public sector government. So it's a very hard issue. But some government officials say that, well, we make some law, and then we can make it we can make the private companies to submit all data mandatorily, but it's impossible in democratic society. So it's a really big issue. So how about your countries, those private sector-owned data and then public sector-owned data?
Yeah, it's a big issue, and there is so much private data available now, which is tightly held and expensive. And if they do hand it over, yeah, you've got to ask what do they do to clean their data before they handed it over. So it's a really big issue, but the potential use of that privately held data is incredible. So I think we do have to work in partnership with industry so that they are actually recognising the benefits.
Yeah, we have the same issue as well, but the point that I was trying to make, of course, the data that was held by the company, they use it for their business and the development of their apps and everything. So we respect that. However, what we are asking is, do it responsibly. I'll give you another example, and this is my last example. In our app, you can also mark where the police are or where the speed camera are. So 200 meters before the speed camera, my app will tell you there's a speed camera coming. How on earth do we allow that to happen? So that's what I'm saying. It's very nice to have this technology, to have their data driven, to help people to navigate, but they have to do it safely, or to navigate mobility to be better and safer. I think that last bit of word, safer, is missing. Thank you.
Right, thanks, Dr. Azlan. I think he was sharing on the navigation system available. I think that was a good point. He highlighted that the options for us is it doesn't give you an option of a safe route. That was the point he was trying to highlight. One way forward could be, which is being advocated by UN, is that every road should meet the minimum star rating of three stars. So if you go by star rating, say for example, if you're 5-star rating, then the color should show green. It's an option for you to choose then. Okay, then as the star rating goes down, then the color can change. But at least, this should at least advocate for all of us to start providing a minimum road with a minimum 3-star rating, so that to make sure that at the minimum level, we can make sure that we are providing the best or the most possible safety level that we can provide for all our road users. Now, let me open up these sessions to the audience whom are present here today. If you have any questions, please come forward to the microphones which are available in the middle of the hall here. Please introduce yourself, and you can say your questions. And if you have that question specifically directed to anyone, please let us know as well. If there's any questions from the floor, you're welcome to raise the questions on the topic on bridging the gaps in mobility. Right.
Hello, my name is Gozali from UEM, Sintok, Kedah. So my question is on, about the topic that we have been discussing this long about happy city. So is there any sample or best happy city that we ever made in Malaysia? The benchmarking of the happy city. We may have within Japan, we may have within other country. What could be the best sample or happy city within Malaysia? Or probably you may have a kind of like index to score this city at which rate and so on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. May I respond? Thank you very much. I have no answer about what is a happy city. So I strongly recommend you to read the Happy City published in Springer Publisher 2017. The Professor Molnich strongly recommend the part of Happy City should be the mobility-oriented development. Then maybe I think there are two aspects. One is user demand side feel happiness. That is one of the happy city. The another one is we need to solve the systematic solution for not only the disabled or elder people, but also the foreigner and some others. Comprehensive solutions are required. Then those solutions will be realized in the happy city. So definition in their book is public-private partnership in urban planning and traffic management are one of the entrance window to enter the happy city. I'm not sure, but this is a description written in the book.
Right, thank you. It's been quite a long time since we heard about the Healthy City Initiative. I'll try. Way back in, I think, more than a decade ago, the city of Kuching has declared itself as a healthy city initiative for Malaysia. I have not seen, unfortunately, any report on the progress of that campaign. However, we also knew that the government, under the Agenda Nasional Malaysia Sihat, the Malaysian Healthy Agenda, had also initiated another 3 areas for Healthy City pilot project. I think one in Jerantut and there's one in Ampang, and I can't remember the other one. But again, this had been mostly focused on trying to get the city or the area selected into a population or community that drives healthy environment in terms of prevention of non-communicable diseases. Specifically on road safety, I'm not exactly sure. I'm sorry, I can't answer that. I'm not exactly sure whether there are any specific city that goes into road safety specific initiative as in the Healthy City initiative that we've had under the public health measures.
But a healthy city would be one with good road safety, because if you are promoting active travel and public transport and you're making that safe and accessible and affordable, then people will use those options and the city will be healthier and the people will be healthier and the city will also be safer.
Right, thanks. Yeah, I think it was a good question on healthy city. But as what Dr. Azlan was telling, we don't have, it was quite some time back that particular concept came in. But I'm quite familiar with safe community. I'm quite familiar. It's not very far from the concept of health city, if you see. So safe community, if you see, there are many indicators inside it where they tend to compare your data over a period, say for the next 3 years. Are you able to bring down, say, number of suicide cases? Are you able to bring down violence in that community? Are you able to improve in terms of road crash and road fatalities, in terms of drowning, in terms of fire and burns? So these are the indicators that they have planted in. The moment you're able to show improvement in all those indicators, then they tend to designate your community as safe community. So say that's one. Second is, if you think that community is too large, too big population, then you can take a sub-community where you can take, say, safe school, or you can take, say, safe industry. So you start with a small community, small cluster, and then you improve on them. And then once the schools are settled down, or the industries are settled down, then you can address the whole community. So that's another approach to be looked at. Okay? But the indicators are always important. It's not only for the person who's going to designate, but the person who's implementing it. You also want to know whether what you are doing, is it on the right track? Are you able to make the community or the city much better off compared to initial? That's one. Second, and what I would like to highlight here is to sustain that status. That's another phase. Getting that status of healthy city is one example, but to sustain it, that's the biggest phase as well. But then once you're able to show that, then it can be replicated in other cities. That's one. And other cities might also be looking forward to you as a model. That's one. And we see wide benefits behind it. It may even increase the property value in that place once people know that, hey, that's a health city. And people may want to move into that city to live. Because if they know that, hey, the crime rates are low, the violence level are low over there. Okay? So there's a huge benefit behind any of those exercises. So something to be explored as well. Okay, thanks. Any other questions from the floor? If you have any questions, feel free to walk to the middle of the hall, to any of the microphones over there. While waiting for the question, I have one to be asked. If you're looking at in terms of inclusive transportation systems, how can we ensure that the mobility solutions are accessible and affordable for everyone, regardless of age, ability, or socioeconomic status? Who would like to take up this question?
Well, the inclusive transport system, I'm just talk about the fair price of the public transit, because this is a very critical issue in Korea right now. I know that in the US and the Europe, for example, like the Metro Pass is quite expensive compared to other countries. But in Korea, if you come to Seoul, you will be surprised because the public system is very good, but fare is very low, very, very low. So that means our fare system do not cover the construction operation cost of the all public system. So we put huge amount of the government tax on subsidies of the public transit. So now the issue is that some people say that it's too big burden, so we have to increase the price. And then some people say, no, this is a very important for inclusive transport system. So we must keep the public transit fare this low. So it's a really big issues. For example, in Korea, if the elder person above the 65, they are free to ride for the public transit. So, but some young people say that right now the economy is not that good. So they say that, well, you have to increase the age up to like the 70s or 75 to save our tax money. and then to use our young people. So it's really big issue. So I think for the inclusiveness of the transportation, the keeping the fare very low is very important. But it costs big money.
I think there are lots of aspects to this, and we need to completely rethink as a society how, when, where, and why we move around. If we are designing places where we live that can be close to where we work and to our communities and to where we need to purchase things, then we can have transportation which is local. If we can reduce the need for people to be on extended public transport, which costs them a lot, if we can reduce the need for people to be commuting for 2 hours to get to work or to a supermarket that they can afford. So it's about rethinking everything about how we move around and getting back to living locally.
I guess you are talk about the 15-minute city concept, right? I think it's a very good idea and concept, but the big city like Seoul and Korea is very the dense cities, so it's really almost impossible to have the all necessary things within the 15-minute distance. For example, like you have your job place and your education, your shopping, the medical cares, all you have within a 15-minute distance. But realistically, it's not that possible in the big city like Seoul. So I think maybe the local low density city maybe is possible. So what do you say?
It was impossible for the world to stop, and then COVID happened. We can do amazing things when we actually prioritize it and think that it's important enough to do.
Yep, thanks for the nice discussion over here. Again, if there's any questions from the floor, please feel free to come forward. Yes. You can introduce your name and then also let us know the question you would prefer to direct to whom, anyone.
Very good morning. My name is Raymond. I'm from Ministry of Transport, Sarawak. Okay, my question is, Sarawak is moving towards adopting hydrogen technology to safeguard our environment. I would appreciate your advice on which ministries or agencies should be responsible for collecting the necessary data to create a happier city, as well as how to effectively integrate this data. Yeah.
First of all, congratulations to Sarawak for introducing the new the new system on using hydrogen. Isn't it? Very good, welcome. I'm not sure exactly if I will be able to answer your question in terms of data from which ministry. In terms of which data are you talking about? Are you talking about crash data or something? Okay. Do you have anything? Yeah.
I think this is a long history question. Who has the responsibility to collect the data? It regards on the traffic flow or signalized control or ITS, accident. There are a lot of various departments has a responsibility to collect the data. But most important in near future is data should be open. Then everybody can use the data. Instead, everybody should provide their own data. That is a new principle. So across the department or ministry, I think we'd better to make a common platform to collect or to use the data. Then each individual respondent should provide the data. If he finds some injured of the road pavement, then they need to report this area to the open source data, for example. Or some accident occurred, then before coming to the police, some people should upload those data. Those open platform may be required in near future. Otherwise, it's very difficult to beyond the barrier of the ministries, I think, ministers.
Right, thanks. Usually what we always say is, whoever the system provider, you should have those data in order for to make it as a self-evaluation for yourself. Okay? So system provider should have data for self-evaluation. That's one part. Then of course, for you to look at the other people, for the authorities to also have those data. Okay? The floor is open for any other questions. If there's any other questions, please feel free to ask. While waiting for anyone to raise any questions, I have one on equity and accessibility. So as we know that this topic, equity, is quite a hot topic coming up now, okay? And then as well as accessibility as well. For the future mobility, how can we ensure that the advancements benefit all members of society, including the marginalized communities and those with limited mobility? Don't forget that we have to make sure that it is inclusive for everyone. Everyone needs to travel, and everyone needs to travel safely. So the whole plan has to be inclusive, taking into picture that they are also part of the system. And once we plan for those who is less mobile, then the whole system will be able to take care of the rest of the population. Who would like to take up this question?
I'm very optimistic about the technology. I believe that technology will save us. For example, like in the past, the gap between the developed country and the underdeveloped country is very huge. But right now, thanks to the recent technologies, you can use smartphone, even in Africa and all of the countries. And talking about the transportation, still we see that the real seriously big gap between countries. Some developed countries have a very highly developed the mobility systems, but in some underdeveloped countries, the road system is very, very poor, and then all the infrastructure is not that good. But if in the future, we have the development of the new technology in mobilities, then just like the smartphones, the gap among countries will reduce, really reduce. So that's my hope. Yeah.
Right, thanks. And then just follow up to it, then will be what strategies can be employed to address transportation disparities and provide equal mobility opportunities to all community members? Any takers here? Good.
In thinking about those disparities, particularly between more wealthy and less wealthy countries, it happens within a country as well. That everywhere you are, the more disadvantaged you are, the more likely you are to die on the roads. And those two things just need not necessarily be connected so directly. Being disadvantaged can have so many different impacts in your life if you are therefore living in an area where the infrastructure is not as good, so you're driving on roads that are not as safe. You can't afford a new safe vehicle, and you can't afford to maintain the vehicle that you have, so what you're driving around in is less safe. You are spending more time commuting to your 3 jobs that you need to have in order to survive. You're therefore not sleeping enough, so you're driving tired all the time. There are so many different elements to it, and reducing poverty and reducing that disadvantage will impact road safety immediately, and vice versa.
Right, thanks. Is there any other questions from the floor? We are still open to any questions from the floor if there's any. And just falling back to your earlier comment, Dr. Egrid, where you did highlight it on the land use planning actually. So once, if the land use plan is being well done, then the movements can be reduced actually. So having said that, my next question will be, what regulatory measures are necessary to ensure the safe and orderly integration of micro-mobility solutions into the urban landscape? So once your land use planning is well, then your micro-mobility can be incorporated well safely. Any takers?
It's a very the traditional question. How can we combine the land use planning and transport planning? It's always an issue. And I'm not the urban planner, but urban planners saying that their concept of land use planning is directly changing. For example, like traditionally, we have a very separate land use in the city, but they are now planning like a mixed use, like one big block, and all use of the like, for example, like residential and the business industry, and all mixed together in the same slot, like very high dense. So if we use the new concept of land use, like a mixed use plan, then as you said, that we can dramatically decrease the movement and then the travel distance. So that really helps the safe and sustainable society. And also, if you have like a good connection using the new mobilities, and then you can actually reduce the use of the passenger cars, and then which means you can easily expect that the decrease of the crashes. So I think the new concept of mixed-use development will really help us to make a better train system.
Right, thanks. And to Dr. Azlan, just follow up to what he has said. How do you think we can better protect pedestrians, cyclists, and motorcyclists, the 3 group of people whom are outside the vehicle? Once you're inside the vehicle, at least you have that vehicle body to give you one layer of protection. Now these 3 group of people whom are exposed without any layer of protection, how can we protect them better? With a goal to make sure that their travel is always safe at every point of time.
Oh, that's a very difficult question. I want to get back first to look at the micro-mobility and how we approach micro-mobility. Then possibly with that, we can think about how do we protect these 3 groups of road user. When there's a lot of emphasis on the technology in micro-mobility. When we first introduced the bike sharing concept, it's not about a bicycle. Bicycle has been there for decades. But it's about how can you share the bike with the machine that you put on the bike, right? To pay for the bike using your credit card and or sort of payment method. But with that, then you are able to do the bike sharing facility. And then we introduced the scooters, and that's because we have the technology of having the batteries on board. Therefore, people can use the scooters. A lot of emphasis on the technology. When that was introduced in Malaysia, it was quite a big hype. I was one of those who asked for the bike station to be in my office so that my staff can use the bikes. But what that did not come together with those introduction is the behavior part. So when we introduced the e-sharing bikes, we did not mandate use of helmets. Yes, Prof. Kula? Correct, yeah? So you can take the bikes, but you don't have to wear the helmet. In Australia, the helmet is $5. You can buy it from any shops. In Malaysia, bicycle helmet is a lot more expensive than Australia 10 years ago. Now it's cheaper. When we introduced the scooters as well, we did not put up that behavior part. So when we introduced the technology, we did not put together a campaign or a program to warn people that, look, now there's many more bicycles, therefore you're going to have interactions with the pedestrian, therefore bicycle should stay on the left, pedestrian on the right. For example, those things does not come in. We just introduce it because this technology is there, therefore use it. The same thing when we have this gig riders, the e-hailing riders. Suddenly there'll be plenty more motorcycle riders on the road, and they're chasing trips as well because they're getting paid from those trips. We have got those technology to allow gig riders. But again, we do not come in with the education and the behavior changing programs or nudges to tell people there'll be a lot more motorcycle riders, therefore be careful on them. So what I'm trying to say is, when you talk about making the motorcycle rider, the pedestrian safer, the cyclist safer, it has, when we have this on the road, we must come together with the campaign to make people aware that there are these users on the road. They are more exposed to the dangers on the road, and they are the ones who are going to get injured heavier or severely compared to the other road users who are protected by the shells of their vehicles. So making them safer means it's not just about introducing the tools or the mechanical vehicles. Nowadays, Prof, we have mopeds that can go as fast as a superbike. Why do we have mopeds that can go as fast as a superbike? We used to have small scooters. Now the scooters is as big as a superbike as well. When we introduce all this, we do not come together with the education that these vehicles are going to kill you faster, so to speak.
Yeah, we need to think about how people behave and design that in. If you've got a really big, busy road and you've got a bus stop on it, and you've also got a nice, safe pedestrian crossing at a set of lights, well done. What more do you want? Well, you want those two things to be close together. If the bus stop is 500 metres from the pedestrian crossing, people aren't going to walk an extra kilometre to cross safely. They're going to cross where the bus stop is and take the risk. And this is part of shifting our thinking away from prioritising vehicles and cars in particular, and instead turning it on its head and prioritising people, pedestrians, cyclists, motorcyclists, instead of starting with the car and then adding on the others. You start the other way around.
Right, thanks. I think we are coming to an end over here because time is running short. I'd like to thank all the speakers here. Prof. Akimasa Fujiwara, thank you very much. You have highlighted on the data-driven approach, and I like as well on your mobility-oriented development, MOD concept. That's nice. And to our friend from Prof. Jeong Woon Yu, thanks for sharing on the micromobility, right? And then trying to link it up with the land use planning as well. Very good. Thanks to Dr. Ingrid Johnson from Australian College of Road Safety, and then to our very own Dr. Azlan from the Social Security Organization. The message is clear and loud. Road crash and road fatality is a public health issue. It has to be addressed. We are not very far. We are just about 7 years down the line, or less than 7 years down the line. Okay? We have a big goal to achieve, 50%. If you just dilute it by year, it will be roughly about 6 to 7% reduction of deaths every year. So sometimes when we see 50% looks too large, can we just focus every year, can we bring down 7%? Then finally we will be on road over there. That's one. If we feel the nation is too big, can we look at small clusters by going by either states or by district? At least at district level, can we achieve the 50%? So then we can replicate the success in some districts to those districts which we are not doing well. So in that case, overall, together we can bring our nation to address this goal. This is a second attempt to bring down 50%, because the first goal was last year's decade until 2020. When we are not able to achieve that particular goal, that goal post was changed to 2030. So I'm sure every one of us don't want to miss this time, okay? Of course, COVID has shown that we can achieve that 50% reduction, okay? It's not something completely impossible, as what you did highlighted as well earlier. So we can do it together. Let's start working and let's monitor the progress which we are achieving year by year, so that during many midterm reviews, we can correct it. And with that, wish you all a happy conference, and thank you to the East Conference for organizing this event and inviting all of us to be a panelist here. Thank you very much.